Well, greetings and welcome to the newest edition of the Stand for Ag podcast with Missouri Farmers Care. We appreciate you tuning in to our Holiday Feasts edition. We've had a great time walking through Missouri wines, tips on beef pot roast, holiday traditions, hams, and today we are going to dig into a delectable selection of Missouri cheeses, talk about the Missouri dairy industry, and hear from those that work daily with dairy farmers. And we can't wait to dig into this timely edition of the Stand for Ag podcast Holiday Feast Cheeses. And I would like to introduce those that are going to be joining me for this conversation today. We have Alex Peterson, a dairy farmer from the Trenton area and an internet star in his own right. He read a book this spring for our Ag Education on the Move outreach series when everybody was stuck at home during the pandemic. Him and his cows were the stars of the show and had thousands and thousands of people loving to see him in the action, sharing his passion for agriculture and the dairy industry. We also have with us today Stacy Dohle. She is Farmer Relations for Midwest Dairy, a strong partner of Missouri Farmers Care that works to raise awareness and opportunities throughout the dairy industry. And then our expert for the day in our cheese realm is Jessica Cahey with Sweet Freedom Cheeses. She is our guest from Arkansas. They are located in the Bentonville area, and I've had the chance to participate in a cheese tasting with Jessica before. She inspired me. I want to do cheese tastings with everyone I know. I had so much fun thanks to Midwest Dairy. And so here we are today. That's what generated the idea and enthusiasm for our conversation today, and hope that you'll be able to join us in tasting these Missouri cheeses as well. And so getting started, I would love to turn it over to Stacy. Stacy, can you tell us a little bit about Midwest Dairy, who the partner, how you guys partner with Missouri agriculture, and who the farmers that you work with?
You bet. Well, first of all, Ashley, thanks for inviting us to be here today. It was a lot of fun, and we just love talking about cheese and all kinds of dairy products, and especially with our dairy farmers and our influencers like Jessica. So Midwest Dairy, we're the dairy checkoff. We represent 10 states here in the Midwest, and we represent in Missouri just a little over 500 dairy farmers. So we're proud of those dairy farmers, and we want to promote and educate consumers about dairy products and about all the great tasting dairy foods that are out there. And on behalf of our dairy farmers, they do a great job for us out in the weather like we're having today and in the heat in the summertime. And they care for their cows, they care for their land. And all of that is to produce that safe, wholesome product that we all get to enjoy.
We appreciate partners like you. Those of us that are on the farm are often very busy with the responsibilities of the farm. And so, all of our organizations that work as those intermediaries between the farm level and consumers, we appreciate what you do. There are days like this that you can't really raise your head up from the ice and snow that's blanketing much of the state to have the opportunity to connect with consumers, which is why we appreciate you, Alex, here today. For those that follow Missouri Farmers Care programs, you may have seen Midwest Dairy and Sweet Bessie, the dairy cow, as she races through the St. Louis Cardinals Stadium in a normal baseball year and tries to best, in the past, Captain Cornelius and the Baconeer. In that effort is just one of the many ways that you guys work to connect with consumers and deliver some key truths about dairy products and the dairy industry, right?
You bet. We are so proud to partner with Missouri Farmers Care, and especially with our St. Louis Cardinals and Sweet Bessie. That's a great fun campaign. But our goal is to reach those consumers just like all of Missouri agriculture, and we want to introduce those consumers to farmers and let them get to know them and ask questions about their practices and what they do on their farm. But, we do so many great things with Missouri Farmers Care. And again, that's a great partnership that we have there because we can reach the consumers, and not only of the consumers of Missouri, but the consumers nationwide. So we're excited to continue that partnership as we move into 2021. Hopefully we'll be able to get out there and and meet more of those folks as we move through a crazy year. I don't think we have to say that too much, but we just love to get our dairy farmers out in front of consumers.
You know, even being engaged in agriculture throughout my life and throughout my career, there is so much to learn about our industry. And so I've even learned a lot in interactions with Midwest Dairy and your messaging that, you know, the milk on Alex's farm may have been there 3 days ago and now be sitting in my refrigerator today, waiting to be consumed by my boys. And so those kind of facts are always eye-opening and enlightening. And we sure do appreciate the work that you do and your partnership with us.
Well, it's like I said, it's a great partnership that will continue. I'm glad we have been a part of it ever since the beginning, and it's people like, you know, our dairy farmers like Alex who really are the rock stars behind all of it when we go out and talk to consumers, because they can tell their story, and that's what we want them to do.
Yes, Alex, speaking of that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your farm and family, and then maybe a little bit about the Missouri dairy industry?
First of all, I just want to thank Missouri Farmers Care for making me a rock star. And I do have to say, before we start reading that book online, I sent a link of it to my brother who lives in Maryville and his family when I sent it to you guys. And he put it on the laptop and played it for my niece and nephews. And my 5-year-old niece, the first thing she said was, "I didn't know Uncle Al knew how to read," and was just blown away. And so the next time she came, all she wanted me to do was read books to her. And I didn't have the heart to tell her all the other adults here can read also. And the other thing I want to shout out to Missouri Farmers Care is, and you have mentioned this a little earlier, as people really hands deep in agriculture, sometimes we get so enthralled with what needs to be done on our side of the farm gate, especially like you said, in weather like this where it's really nasty out, and we kind of have to go above and beyond to take care of our animals and our farms. That makes it less available time we have to interact with the community and with our customers. And that's where people like Stacy and what she does to kind of bridge the gap between the consumers and where our products are going, and encouraging us to, you know, don't hide under a rock. As I've said, in 2020, farmers, we were socially distancing before it was cool. My life hasn't really changed that much in 2020. I was kind of locked down the farm here most of the time. But it is important that we get out and connect and make connections. And I appreciate you guys having this format so we can do that. And I'm excited for what the future holds. One of the keys, I think, to sustainability as agriculture in general is having good relationship with your community and your neighbors, because they're the ones who call you when they need a tractor to pull their car in the ditch, but you need them to stick up for you as you do what you need to do to care for your animals and land. And I do that here in southeastern Grundy County outside of Trenton, and we milked 151 cows this morning. Everybody made it in. It's a great day to have 4 legs. When it's icy like this, 4 legs are better than 2. I think I was the only one to fall down all morning that I saw. So that's okay. I farm here with my folks and oldest brother, and we love this land that we have and these cows that we have. It's kind of been nice. There are little bright sides of 2020. The niece who's in college was home for an extended break, and my nephew who's in high school has been home. So kind of like the Chiefs are this weekend coming up, we don't have to play the starters every single game. We can have some of the subs come in and help out and get some extra work done. And I think that's one of the kind of the bright spots of being a family farm. It's not so much work that you have to do, but it's something you can do together every day. And sometimes that's a blessing, and sometimes it's a little bit of a burden, but it's all in all ways out to be a great thing. And it's not a bad place to social distance. So I'm very thankful for that. So, but that's what we do, as long as it gets done every day. I mean, you can't have your cookie cheese break until after the chores are done, Jessica. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you've got the same policy there where you're at, is you got to have all the work caught up before you start cutting into the product.
Mm-hmm.
At least I hope. So thanks for having me. Looking forward to what is going to be my cookie break for the day.
Awesome. I think that's a great tradition to have a regular cookie break in your day, Alex, to go with your milk. Just a little bit, I love that your girls are well equipped for this weather. We were laughing today that our Basset Hound probably has the advantage of the farm. Low center of gravity, there's not far to fall. It's a good place to be structured with 4 legs. You're exactly right. So
the only thing better than 4 legs is 4 legs and a belly on the ground, which is closer to what I had going on earlier.
He's got that advantage. So just a little bit, tell us about how your guys' farm and the dairy industry in general has changed. We have a lot of data showing us how big of leaps and bounds all of us in agriculture, but particularly the dairy industry, has taken over time. We are more efficient. We run a lean green machine with our dairy industry. And so can you tell us just a little bit about that and what that looks like personally?
I think whenever people think change nowadays, they want to see like huge, massive steps. And I think dairy is a great story in that the last 40 years, it's not huge, massive steps. It's every day, small, incremental. Let's make this change. Let's make this change. So on our farm, whether it's soil erosion practices, we are a management intensive grazing farm. So it's a lot more of the cows doing the legwork, which is just a different style, and it gives us different opportunities for that kind of sustainability story and green story, and it affects how we function. But the beauty of dairy is that no matter what part of the country and kind of dictates how your operation functions. And dairy farms are as unique as the dairy farmers that run them. But what we all have in common is every day we're looking to improve. We're looking to make innovations. And some of those small incremental steps do accumulate into pretty massive, environmentally friendly, environmentally sustainable, financially sustainable practices. One of my friends in Washington State's updating their anaerobic digester. And so, and cool stories like that from across the country of just great opportunities to do what we do better. Every single one of us want to do what we do better. Jessica wants to find a better way to cut a piece of cheese to make it taste good. And we are all incredibly thankful for that because as good a job as I do, unless it gets presented the right way and brought to the consumer's attention the right way, they're going to miss out. There's so many blessings we miss out on because we get caught up in the packaging. We got to have people that get the story right, to get the words right, take the time to get the words right. And I think dairy, as we do a better job of measuring what we do and how we do it well and telling that story, I think people are going to see that we have kind of been the original Greenpeace people the whole time. We've been, nobody cares more about the land that I'm on than me. Just like the pet you have in your house, nobody loves that pet more than you do. I feel the same way about my cows and about my land. It's because that's what I spend all my time with. And whenever I fall down, that's what I look very closely at as I try to pick myself up. But I think it's a beautiful story, and I think it's one that we're finding better and better ways to improve every day, and finding better and better ways to communicate that. And that's going to take all of us in the chain, from you, Ashley, and what you guys are doing, to Jessica, as we hopefully give her great products to help enrich people's lives, and Stacy keeping me under control every time I go out in public. So all important roles.
Absolutely. And really all hinges on relationship. As you say, you've got a relationship with your land and your animals, and your family that is also running that farm with you. It's the same here. I live coincidentally on Jersey Trail, named after the dairy barn just down the road that delivered milk in glass bottles to the 50s. I know, though, that even if, that operation looks vastly different from what you've got today, but some fundamentals remain. We have an advantage of grass in North Missouri, right? As you mentioned.
Yeah.
So we have a beef cattle operation. I'm not as familiar with dairy, but I know that both you and I manage essentially solar panels out there that, 80% of your cow's diet is feedstocks and roughage that wouldn't otherwise be consumed. It's not a food supply diversion. My green hills of North Missouri aren't necessarily cut out for anything other than grazing a ruminant. And so saying that you've got that relationship and that intimate knowledge of your animals and that we can maximize those advantages. I wish, looking back at my college career, when I took a degree course that was an animal science heavy course, I sure know my animals well, but I should have been thinking about managing that solar panel that is my fields and pastures, because maximizing those has proven as important as anything to making sure that we're doing a great job in our productivity and in our stewardship, which is important and top of mind to all of us. We appreciate what you do. Stacy, have we missed anything on the Missouri dairy industry? Some highlights that you want to share with us before we transition to our cheese tasting?
I think Alex hit it right out of the park. I mean, he hit on it, and like he said, what the dairy farmers are trying to continuously improve technology on their farms every day. They're working to improve, and it's just those little things, and not everybody has to do everything all at once to improve, whether it's water quality or feed nutrition or things for their land. But everybody can do a little bit of something, and I think that's what we're seeing in Missouri, is that our dairy farmers are committed to that, and that's why we're so proud of all of them, and proud of Alex of what he does and how he speaks out on behalf of the dairy industry. So that we have some great cheeses to taste, and we're so excited that we do have those Missouri cheeses here today, because we do have some processors, some farmer processors who are making some great tasting cheeses, and we're excited that you wanted to try them.
Absolutely. So Alex is a spectacular spokesman, but we would be remiss to not point out that there are hundreds of farmers and dairy farmers across the state that care just as much as he does about his product, land and animals. I think that our first Leopold Conservation Award winner said, while we appreciate this honor, what is the spectacular aspect of this is that there are thousands of more that are as representative of this land ethic as we are out there across the state. So Alex is wonderful, but he is not the exception to the rule. He is a perfect representation of Missouri's dairy farm families. Well, I can't wait my taste buds are watering. I am smelling this cheese, Jessica. Your background makes my stomach rumble. Back behind you, that's showing a variety of cheeses. And so can you introduce us to what our taste buds are about to experience today, and a little bit about your operation and your shop, and how you came to be the big cheese at Sweet Freedom Cheese?
Yeah, my pleasure. First, before I get started though, Alex, it's a burning question. I need to know, is it Ag Ed on the move? Because if not, I feel like that was a low-hanging pun fruit.
Yeah, I know.
You've got to go back and edit now. It's all about having a little fun, I think, in the day too. So yeah, and honestly, Alex, too, I love what you were saying earlier about, I mean, it is our responsibility to get it out to the public. And so it's a little bit like we're storytellers. We're kind of holding the story and trying to adequately, convey that to the consumer, why this product is so wonderful and great, especially when it comes to small production and artisanal producers and, and American ag. So it's our pleasure to do that. So I'm Jessica Cahey. I'm the big cheese here at Sweet Freedom Cheese. I actually started the company, had the idea that I wanted to be in cheese back in 2012, and immediately started the company in 2013, and didn't open the doors until 2018. So it took some time and a lot of kind of market research and finding the right location, and I actually started in cheese making and then made our way into kind of part 2, which was to actually sell the cheese and cut to order type shop, which I am hiding in the back of our what was once our dining room and is now kind of our dry storage. With COVID, of course, lots of changes. So we had shut down on-site consumption of like cheese plates and wine glasses and such here, and converted into dry storage to kind of help us exceed what we had, which was a very small capacity before for grocery. And then start to do other projects. We did classroom on-site cheese making here for the average just everyday interested consumer. And then we also did, wine and cheese tastings and fun things like that. And now we've changed it all to virtual. So it's been very exciting because, yes, again, Alex, I'm with you, silver lining. I think, you have to find it where you can. And in that, we're able to reach so many more people with these sorts of conversations that I think we probably would have never had, pre-COVID. So it's been wonderful and we really appreciate being here. So yes, I'm in the back. This is the front of the cheese shop and we are open today. So if you hear, a bunch of background noise with our mongers, we are slinging the cheese for sure. So we have 4 cheeses today, which are all in some way made in Missouri, and we're super excited to represent you guys. Most of these we actually carry on a regular basis and are really proud to be able to feature these producers. So kind of telling the story of each, if you guys want to get out your cheese with me and eat it, you're welcome to. So the first one we're going to do is actually Edgewood Milk and Honey. And kind of in telling their story, Edgewood is actually the closest to us. They're about maybe 50 minutes to an hour north. We're located in Northwest Arkansas, and there aren't a ton of producers here in Arkansas. There are a few more in Oklahoma and Missouri that we try to work with, and we work with Edgewood quite a bit. So they produce their own milk on site, and they do a number of different cheeses, cheese curds, cheddar, blue cheese, and they also have a spreadable cheese called Fromage Blanc. And I really love this. We actually use this on our grilled cheese one of our grilled cheese sandwiches called the Danish. So if you guys need some ideas of what to do with this later, it's a Fromage Blanc just means white cheese, and it really can be a wide variety of different styles, honestly. So some Fromage Blanc I've encountered is a little almost soupier, kind of like a sour cream would be, a little tangier. This one is a little more spreadable and a consistency that I really like. So it won't kind of goop out and melt, but it actually does really well in terms of baking. And so we put it in our grilled cheese sandwich with a little sour cherry jam, and we call it the Danish because it tastes like a cherry cheese Danish. It is so delicious. And this is a cheese too, if anyone's kind of interested in learning how to, maybe make cheese at home. This is a cheese that you can make in a pretty short period of time that is, I always find a little gratifying because cheese making is very daunting. And I say, mostly just leave it to the professionals who know what they're doing in terms of food safety and consistency and such. But this is one that I think, if somebody's interested, who's maybe taken on the COVID sourdough baking experience and wants to try something else in terms of milk fermentation, this would be one that you could definitely try out. This one does have a little bit of added honey to it. They have a plain one that's really tangy, that's called Plain Jane. But this one, I think with that added sweetness, that it really balances out some of that acidity that's in the cheese. Have you guys tried this? You're welcome to, no pressure, podcast participants. So it's what you're gonna get, like I said, is that tanginess. It's almost kind of like a yogurty, and that's what that is, that lactic. Yogurt does have other types of starter cultures in it that aren't in kind of traditional cheeses, but but it has that kind of same kind of lactic tang to it. It's really creamy, has a little bit of a higher protein content than say cream cheese would. So I think it's a really, nice way to maybe start your day. And what I do with this is kind of just spread it on like bagels, almost like you would cream cheese. It's really yum. So, the Edgewood was actually I think in all of these that we're going to follow, they all kind of started as a dairy farm and not making cheese from day one, and kind of work their way into it as a value added product. So they had been, the Fletcher family that had started Edgewood in Purdy had been doing the dairying aspect for quite some time, and then kind of converted over to intensive rotational grazing. And then in 2013, decided that they were going to bring cheese into the mix. And of course, that doesn't happen overnight. So a couple years later, after planning and building their facility, which is really neat, in 2015, they opened their cheese making facility. And then a handful of years later, we started working with them. I took whenever I knew that I wanted to start my life in cheese, I actually had taken a bunch of courses and certification. I'm, I think the only certified cheese professional in Northwest Arkansas through the American Cheese Society. But a lot of that, is just book learning. And so you really need to get out there and do it. And I took courses in making cheese, but it really, I would encourage anybody who kind of wants to be in dairying or into, the cheese field, is to see, now is a really tricky time, but maybe post-COVID, see if you can visit places. And what I found is cheese people are really just the nicest, most welcoming people. And so we got to actually kind of take our cheese mobile and go across America on the great American cheese road trip and visit a lot of different dairy farms and cheesemakers. And we made a big circle loop and then back to Arkansas. And the last trip, place on the trip was actually Edgewood. And it was great because then a lot of these cheesemakers we continued working with as we had opened the shop. So the Fletcher family that I had met back in 2016, in 2019, sold the farm over to Kelly Stevens, who's kind of carried on the tradition. And we're really excited to have been working with her and carrying her milk in our shop as well for the last couple of years.
That is a great story, and that is delicious.
It's a lot.
It is. And I just love that you mentioned you took a cheese mobile across the country. Not a lot of people can replicate that sort of experience.
It's true. Yeah, it was definitely true. I had some advice given to me, by another cheesemaker. My background before getting into cheese was actually in engineering, and I did a lot of consulting work and kind of building projects. And so that engineering mind kind of sticks with me in a lot of things in the cheese world, and kind of thinking about maybe building our own facility, really just, being there, pictures worth 1,000 words, but actually being there is, worth a million more, and being able to ask questions. And we had so many people on the trip say, gosh, I really wish I could have done what you did. It would have saved me so much grief, knowing how to fix these problems before they started, or, knowing this was maybe a great idea or just maybe not such a great idea, and finding out what was important to people. So it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Yes.
And introduced us to a lot of great people in the dairy industry.
I am glad that you could bring the best from the country back to the Midwest.
Sometimes to be a good cheesemaker, you've got to immerse yourself in the culture. And you need a cheesemobile to get around.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that one. Yes. All right. It's true. We're very cultured over here. Do you guys want to delve into the second cheese?
Yes.
Yeah, you ready? Okay, cool. So I think if we did it properly, we sent you guys different flavors of the next product, just so that you could each try them and kind of, compare notes. But we actually sent you guys, background there, is Shatto. So Shatto cheese, they're up outside, just I think north of Kansas City. They're the one of 4 that we don't actually regularly carry at our shop because they they haven't distributed, down to our area yet. So I was really looking for an excuse to get some of their products here, and this was the best excuse I could find. So we brought in a couple of flavors of their curds, and feel free to snack on them if you guys want. I like to cook with curds a lot, and it's a little bit confusing, the word curd, because whenever you're making cheese, you're separating curds from whey. So Little Miss Muffet, Senator Tuffet. So the whey portion is mainly water. It has some lactose, it has some minerals in it, and then maybe a little bit of whey protein that goes out. But what we're trying to do in cheese making is actually capture most of the solids. So the fats and the proteins, we're trying to concentrate. And so depends on the cheese that you make, but for every, say, 10 pounds of milk you have, you're going to wind up with maybe a pound, more or less. It could, again, depending on the style. If it's a moisture cheese, you might wind up with a pound and a half. If it's drier cheese, less than a pound. But then that means you have about 9 pounds of whey you have to deal with too. But the curd portion could then at that point, depending on your recipe, turn into a myriad of other cheeses. It could be, Parmesan, or it could be cheddar, it could be mozzarella, and it's all kind of that basic building block is the curd itself. But whenever we're making cheddar cheese, we also create something called curds. And so whenever you're thinking about like poutine and, it's more popular kind of in the upper Midwest. I don't know about with you guys, cheddar cheese curds down in Arkansas, really before we opened weren't a big thing, but we have enough transplants here that people are really excited, I think, to have them. And we've introduced kind of the idea of the cheese curd to people, and it's been a big hit. One of you, I can't remember which, but one of you has the plain version. And then Ashley, I'm pretty sure, by request, I sent you the Cajun ones. I hope, fingers crossed. And then, yeah, okay. And then someone got the dill. So I hope you guys enjoy those. I actually immediately bought some of the Cajun myself. I've already eaten some of them. But I love, Alex, kind of going back to what you were saying too about packaging, I thought that was really keen because packaging is huge. You can have the best product, doesn't matter what it is, if it's dairy or not. But if it's not packaged where a consumer is going to be attracted to it and want to pick that product up in the first place, much less buy it, then it doesn't really matter. And so I thought they have some really amazing packaging. I love at the top here where it says you're 1 tear away from bliss, which is really cute, in these kind of resealable packages, which are really clever too. And I love their website. I think their website and all their products. So they make, in addition to the cheese curds, they make some other firm cheeses, and they make milks. They actually started bottling. The Shatto family has been in that area, dairy farming for about 80 years now. And I think in 2000, I'll have to look it up, not that long ago. Let's see, I think 2003, I think is right. They started bottling their own milk on the farm, which is really neat. And they do some other flavored milks and some ice cream as well. But I think the curds were just kind of a fun little snackable treat for you guys. And you can certainly just eat them. You can make poutine with them, but I like to melt them just over anything. So pizza, nachos, anything you would want some melty cheese.
I can tell you that I agree. This packaging is awesome. I'm not sure that I'm going to need the handy resealable top to it. These are amazing. So yeah, are new to me. That is, we eat a lot of cheese in our house, but we don't eat. I'm probably fairly central Midwesterner, right? Like I haven't ever thought of cheese curds as part of my diet. Oh my, these are delectable, and I can just imagine snacking them today until they're gone by themselves or on something like nachos, which you can't beat either.
Yeah, they're great. And I think they're a great carrier for different kinds of like fun flavors. So they carry these and a couple of other ones like a mushroom, and I've seen lots of other kind of weird flavors out there that are just really neat. So the kind of, I don't want to make it sound like making cheddar curds is easy, because it's definitely not. Making anything that involves cheddar is definitely, very backbreaking work. There's a lot involved to it, but then you can take those curds, you can smush them into a form, and then you can wait a month or up to years to get a cheddar, like a firm cheddar that we're kind of thinking about. And we're actually going to try a couple of those too. But a lot of producers that make cheddar also make cheddar curds, because it's a way for them to be able to kind of source a little bit of income before having to wait that long period of time. Because if you have a long aged cheese, that's kind of like money that's just sitting on a shelf that you're waiting for and kind of hoping will age properly and will be sent out to the consumer and be purchased. So yeah, cheddar curds are kind of a fun little snack too that you can freeze. I actually normally do not recommend that you freeze cheese, because cheese has those starter cultures in it, and most cheeses are not going to get better if you freeze them. they'll, especially the texture will change pretty substantially. So if you're maybe pre-shredding something, tossing it maybe with the cornstarch or something for baking later, like in a casserole, then, you know, sure, fine. That I think that could be okay. But if you've got like a great quality cheese, most of the time, it's not going to improve that cheese. It's going to change the flavor and the texture. And when it thaws out, some weird stuff's going to happen. So I don't usually recommend it, but cheese curds, a little trick that cheesemakers do use is they a lot of times freeze the curds to maintain the squeakiness to it. Yeah, after a while, it kind of loses its squeaky. I mean, in a while, I mean like 24 to 48 hours. And then boom, it's gone. But a way to get that back is you can actually pop them in the microwave just for a few seconds and they'll start to get that squeak just temporarily back. Yeah, but same way, Ashley, I'm from Southern Arkansas and I had never heard of a cheese curd really before I started into the cheese industry. So I'm glad to be able to spread that around a little bit. Cool. You guys ready to move on to the third cheese?
Yeah.
Perhaps? Awesome, cool. So we kind of talked about cheddar cheese curds. The next two are actually cheddars of a sort, but they're very different cheddars. Also both made in Missouri, and it kind of allows me to talk about how cheddars developed in America. So cheddar cheese until 2005 was actually the most consumed and produced cheese in the United States before mozzarella took over. I think mainly because of the pizza industry, because we love pizza. But cheddar cheese, we definitely make a lot of here. And whenever I ask people, you know, what their favorite cheeses are, a lot of times the majority is cheddar. And there's a lot of cheddars out there. So before we really, you know, got the shop started, cheddar cheese was on the bottom of my list of what I thought was interesting and delicious cheeses. But we carry a ton of them, and I've been converted, frankly, over. And I like to kind of to spread around that knowledge too, that there's, you know, not just one style of kind of block cheddar out there, that there's probably a cheddar for everyone. So this one is actually also from outside Kansas City, from the Hemme brothers. So same kind of story that we've been going along, is that their patriarch had the dairy farm, and they decided at some point, you know, we've got to figure out how to make this work. And they started the value-added product of doing Hemme Brothers cheese. And so there are 4 brothers on the farm, and they all are back in kind of the ag industry at the farm, which I think is, you know, somewhat unusual in this day and age. And they all have like different roles, which I think is very clever. And some of the most successful dairy farms that also are making cheese, I have seen kind of do this, where they have a segregation of roles, where, you know, one person is going to be doing the cheese making, and that is their focus, and then one person is going to be doing, you know, the land management, and that is, you know, what they're focusing on. Because whenever, not that it can't be done, lots of places are doing it, but it's a lot of work. It's very, very hard. And a lot of places actually have a separation where, you know, the dairy farm is one business and there's a person over that, and then the cheese making is another business and there's a person over that, because doing both of them is like I said, a ton of work to keep up with. And certainly, like I said, there's lots of places that are doing it, but I think it's very clever, these individualized, and lucky too, that you have kind of the labor force and the love behind it. In that knowledge base too, to kind of keep that going. So anyways, they're kind of all doing their thing, which is really awesome. And they are focusing on cheddars as well. And they have a bunch of flavored cheddars too, that I think are really super delicious. The one that we tried, I think Ashley at the Midwest, was maybe the rubbed and smoked, which is their kind of younger cheddar that is rubbed with, it's smoked, applewood smoked, and then rubbed with Yardbird seasoning, which is just, it's one of my new favorite cheeses. I can put away a large portion of that cheese for sure. They also make curds, and their packaging is also amazing. Super kudos to whoever is doing that. And they make old fashioned cork, which is kind of a German style lactic cheese. That I hope you guys can maybe get your hands on. It's a little bit like, again, like tanginess, like Fromage Blanc and sour cream, but it's got kind of its own little twist on it. Yeah, so hope you guys start enjoying this cheese. One thing that I like to impart to whenever we're doing cheese tastings is to let your cheese sit out, especially firmer cheeses. So, you know, spreadable stuff and things that are very perishable, like mozzarella, keep those refrigerated until you're ready to eat them. But other cheeses like cheddars and goudas and such, bries even, even though it's a little moister, pull those out 30 minutes to even an hour before you're going to actually consume them, and let them kind of come to room temperature. It's totally fine in terms of food safety, and as long as you're consuming that within kind of a normal period of time, not leaving it out all day. But 30 minutes to an hour, it'll come to room temperature, and basically the fat molecules will start to soften up, like butter if you left butter on the counter, which is what I do all the time, and it changed my life, frankly. So I encourage everyone to do that. It'll make you a happier person. And yeah, so if you leave the cheese out, you'll be able to, just like a wine tasting, for instance, if the wine is at kind of the appropriate temperature, you're going to be able to smell it and taste it better. And so hopefully I've talked long enough that this cheese has been kind of out for you guys for maybe 30 minutes. And so you're going to be able to smell it better. And you can definitely try this with any cheese of any format. You can put it in the fridge and then pull a little piece out, and then 30 minutes later, try both. And the piece that's super cold, you're not going to be able to taste or smell as well as the piece that's been out for a little bit. So this cheddar that we sent you guys is we cut to order. It's the Brothers Keeper, which I thought was a clever name, kind of based on their family farm history there. And they, like I said, they have a number of cheddars that are younger styles. This is their kind of extra age style, if you will. So it's going to start having a little bit of, instead of a smoother texture, it's going to be a little more crumbly, and it's going to have a little bit of that crunch to it too. Do you guys get that a little bit?
Yes, I would describe this as decadent. This is
yeah,
actually kind of decadent cheese.
It's a great one. Yeah, I think you can definitely cook with this cheese, but it really shines on a cheese plate too. And I like to a lot of times pair my cheeses with jam. Actually, we encountered somebody recently who was like, "I've never thought about putting jam with cheese." Like, it's gonna change your life. Do it. But with cheddars, I actually really like mustards. So a little more on the savory profile. So you can really play around with some interesting flavored mustards and pickles. You can kind of think of like old school, like English plowman's lunch, with an IPA. It's an amazing, amazing pairing. Maybe a little bit of salami and a hunk of bread. Like, I'm done. It's awesome. But yeah, I hope you guys do enjoy this cheese. And let's see. So the next one that we have is also a cheddar, but it's very, like I said, different in style from this. So it's aged even longer. And where this cheese is actually aged as a block. So they come in different shapes and styles, cheddars do. So this one is into kind of a 5-pound block style. And like the majority of American cheddars, they're actually aged by vacuum sealing. So kind of an anaerobic type of ongoing fermentation in the affinage. So it'll sit there and be aged. There's some tending that still has to be done to the cheese as it ages, but it makes it a little bit easier, in terms of the aging process. But it also is good for profitability too, because the cheese as it ages will start to lose moisture inside. So you might start out, say, with 10 pounds of cheese, and whenever you're done with the aging process, you might only have 9 pounds of cheese. So you've kind of lost 10% of your, your potential profits there. So it's definitely a style that is most common, but in kind of the founding of America, early America, we are, a nation of immigrants, but kind of initially what we were seeing is a lot of cheddar making, because the English were making cheddar at the time. And so that's what we were, kind of trading technology back and forth. And they were putting, these cheddar cheeses on boats back and forth, and they weren't maybe faring so well through the ocean. And so we came up with the technology of cloth binding. And there's a really great book called Cheddar that a very famous cheesemonger has written. So if you guys are really interested in reading more about the history of cheddar, I would really encourage you guys to check that book out. It's very fascinating. But you can kind of see on this piece, and you guys should have some on the piece that I sent you too, is there's actual cloth. And we usually recommend, and say most cheeses out there have a rind that is edible. So say bries, for instance, a lot of people cut it off, but in a good brie, the rind is actually kind of meant to be consumed with the rest of the cheese. It's almost like I say, don't peel it off and just like eat the rind by itself. It's meant to be eaten kind of as a whole package. Like you wouldn't peel an apple and then just eat the rind. You would want to eat kind of the whole thing. Again, we try not to cheese shame. We want you guys to have an enjoyable experience whenever you're eating your cheese. So if you don't like rinds, you don't like the rind on a particular cheese, don't eat it. Totally fine. That's kind of my personal protocol, but I always encourage people to try it because you might actually like it. There's some that I love and some that I don't, but this one actually does have a piece of cloth on it, so you're going to want to peel it off first. Obviously, don't eat that fabric. And then as you get closer to the edge of this cheese, to this rind, it's going to be earthier. So where the other cheese we just had has been aged, like I said, anaerobically in this vacuum sealed package, it's not going to have any air exchange other than what's in that package, which is going to be minimal. And also there's not going to be any mold growth on the outside of that cheese. So that's another benefit of packaging and aging that cheese that way. Whenever we're cloth binding, they'll actually take some sort of cloth or like butter muslin and then put it on the outside and then rub the cheese in something that's semi-permeable like lard or butter, lard is pretty common. And what that does is kind of seal it all together, and it lets the cheese develop a nice rind on the outside and not evaporate the moisture from the inside too quickly. So it will continue doing that over time, and it will get drier and drier, but it kind of slows that process down into something that's a little more manageable so that the end result cheese isn't cracked as well. So this is called Flory's Truckle, the fourth cheese that we have, and it's actually made in Jamesport, Missouri, and it's a collaboration between two cheesemakers. So it's made by the Flory family, but it's after 2 months of kind of production and then aging, they send it over to Iowa, to Milton Creamery, and they finish the aging process, which I think is another 10 months in their facility. So it's pretty neat. And it's the first time I went to the American Cheese Society conference in Des Moines, Iowa. They actually won first place in their category for cloth-bound cheese. So this is definitely a heralded and winning, award-winning cheddar in this kind of traditional style. So yeah, I hope you are delving into it.
So I think you used the word crunchy earlier. Is that right, Jessica?
Yes, crunchy is definitely the word. So the crunchy is a little bit, from the dryness too, but also because of the crunchy crystals. So crystals develop naturally in cheeses. You'll see them in well-aged cheeses like Goudas and Cheddars and Parmesan as well. And it's mainly from a protein called tyrosine. So tyrosine was actually, it's an amino acid that was discovered in cheese. And tyros are the kind of Greek and Phoenician words for cheese, one of the first written ones known. And so because they found it most prevalent in cheese, they actually named it after cheese, which I think is kind of cool. So if you're a turophile, you actually are a cheese lover. But those little crunchy crystals you have to get, we actually don't produce them, and you actually have to get them in your diet. So there's some evidence too that they break down into happy things like dopamine. And so, I don't know, I'm not a nutritionist, but perhaps it's at enough quantity to make you feel good about the state of the world right now. I don't know, but can't hurt to try a little crunchy crystals. What else maybe are you experiencing, in this cheddar versus the other one? No pressure, no wrong answers.
I'm going to move my screen so everybody can see what we are enjoying, those that have video. And then I'll let Alex, you and Stacy kind of describe your taste profiles that you're experiencing. So.
Look at that cheese board.
Woo.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I love that you guys put cheese boards together.
See, that's what we do.
I feel like a big slacker.
Here we go. You can see.
Oh, nice.
I even put fruit.
Good, very balanced. So it's actually, now that it's like come to room temperature, it definitely has a creamier like mouthfeel to it. If you ate it kind of right out of refrigeration, it'd be definitely firmer. Yeah.
I would say while the Cajun cheddar curds weren't spicy at all, they're very flavorful. I taste some spice in this truckle cheddar. spicy profile to me.
Yeah, there's some spice to it, absolutely. And it's not a flavor addition either. Milton actually does have a cheese that they add spice to called Forlarm. It's one of our very popular ones at the shop, and they have ghost pepper in it. I mean, it's really hot. But this one, all it really has in it, the basic building blocks of cheese, which is milk, of course, cultures, rennet, and salt. And that's literally it. Excluding the rind treatment for that cloth bounds. So what's happening, where you're getting kind of that spiciness, and I get a little like tongue tingle too, is really from the aging process. So that just kind of creates more complexity, not just from a flavor and aroma development standpoint, but also kind of from a mouthfeel and like sensory aspect too.
That is great.
So Jessica, what's the New Year's Eve cheese for this year? What's flying off the shelf this year?
Okay. Oh, that's a good question. I should have this, at my
or what was Christmas's, to back into it a little bit.
Oh yeah, we brought in a lot of this is a great opportunity to talk about seasonality of milk and cheeses too. And Alex, you can definitely speak to this more. But milk is a seasonal product. I mean, obviously we're making it year round, but it changes characteristics throughout the year, and that's extremely important to cheese making, because there are definitely cheesemakers out there I know who have struggled maybe making a specific style of cheese in the summer or the winter, depending on what they're making. And in terms of consistency, just decided we're only going to make this cheese during a specific portion of the year. So, and that's common in places in Europe too, where they only release a cheese for a few months during the wintertime, when the milk fats are more concentrated and they lend themselves to a different style of cheese, versus in the summertime where you have maybe more yield, but you're going to have less concentration. So we do bring in a lot of seasonal cheeses in the wintertime that are only released during that period of time. So I feel like we get a lot of excitement about it. Maybe we're only bringing in a few wheels, or just a limited amount, but people get excited about it because it's only available for a very short period of time. So we always kind of get hyped up about that, or things that are maybe released with flavors in them. We have a Fromage Blanc to kind of style or fromage phrase that we bring in just at Christmas time, that is eggnog flavored, and even people who hate eggnog actually have been really into it. It's just really creamy and lovely, and just heavy on the nutmeg and vanilla, and it's just super yummy as well. That's from a little kind of animal sanctuary and cheese making place up in New York called Nettle Meadow. But yeah, it's sometimes really hard to kind of put my finger on what's my personal favorite, because I feel like it changes like every 5 minutes almost. Pretty much.
We see why the flavor profiles on just the cheese plate in front of us. I can see why every time you turn your attention to a different cheese, you could find something else. I feel like your question is timely, Alex, because I feel like you've equipped us today with enough knowledge to walk into a New Year's Eve party, a football gathering, or something else that's going to be happening through this season, and have enough knowledge behind us to kind of help the other guests understand what's on a cheese plate and how to appreciate the flavors and what to look for in some cheeses. So, the cheeses that we have today, Jessica shipped to us from Sweet Freedom Cheese. There are also several that are available through the farms that, you could, Jessica mentioned their websites, they're available there, or in some grocery stores in at least portions of the state. And so it's a great opportunity. At least all of us share a love for local and share a love for, supporting our neighbors and our communities. And here's one great opportunity to be able to do that. In addition to just supporting the dairy case and all the products across the spectrum of the dairy case. But I feel like I will be better prepared when I walk in with some of these cheeses, if we don't eat them all in the next 24 hours, some of these cheeses to share with friends over the next several days.
For sure. Yeah. And it's, it's been, I've talked about a lot of things from, the chemistry and the cheese making to kind of history and culture, which is kind of fun to add, but really it all just comes down to, do you like the cheese, and if you do, then great. And, share it with others.
That's great. Well, Coming full circle, I just have one last question for you, Alex. So we've talked a lot about cheese and not very much about fluid milk today. So does the milk that you and your girls milked this morning, where does most of that end up in the dairy supply chain?
It goes to, right now it's going to Robert's Dairy in Kansas City. So it's going to fluid. Missouri is mainly a fluid producing state because we consume more dairy products than we produce here. But actually, on occasion, I'm about 30 minutes away from Flory's cheese shop. And on occasion, our milk gets rerouted there whenever they get their milk from. We're all in this together. We've all got to help each other out. And so I was excited that Flory was a part of this because he's kind of in the dairy world, we'd call that a neighbor.
That's amazing.
So your milk
could be in this cheese.
Yeah, probably not this cheese, unless it's like, of course, I guess, how old probably is this cheddar?
Oh, good. That's a great question, actually. So this cheese is, I think, usually aged around a year minimum. And so it kind of depends on, what the cheesemaker is doing in terms of the rotation. So we might be getting it from a distributor after that, and then we might have it in our case for a little bit after that. So, it's possible that we could have, Truckle that's even, a year and a half old, honestly.
Well, that's a year and a half would be the sweet spot. That's when it happened. I'm sure it wasn't when they were the world winner or whatever that was. The national.
Yeah, 2016.
I doubt it was. I'm sure I wasn't a part of that, or at least I didn't get a memo on that. But yeah, and I think that's a great point, Ashley. It seems like so much work to be a dairy farmer. I have so much respect for these people that have started their own creameries and making their own cheese. And just kind of we were talking about the Hemme brothers or Flory's, you have to have that much more manpower and that much more capability, and have to have some monger, I guess is the term of the day. You have to have somebody that went and got the experience to know how to do that. It's a whole nother ball game, and it's super impressive. But farmers and agriculturalists, we think in terms of generations, and sometimes a new generation's got to bring a new skill set, and dairy is one of those ventures that there are different opportunities. I mean, you can bring a lot of different skill sets and make it work and contribute and add value, and all we need now, I think, is Jessica to write a little how-to book, maybe a little what this is and what this means. I think a little flip chart at least would be very handy for me. And if you're going to a Super Bowl party or a New Year's Eve party, I think a hunk of cheese is probably the best thing you can have under your arm when you show up.
Exactly. Pairing that with some Missouri wines that we tried last time, I can't think that there would be a more popular guest at the next gathering. So that would be great. Well, Alex Peterson, thank you for joining us from your farm in Grundy County. Stacy, thank you for being a friend to Missouri's dairy industry and for the work you and Midwest Dairy do. And Jessica, your expertise, you have made us you have become our most cultured guest, and we appreciate all of that culture that you've shared with us, so we can have just a snippet of what you know and your expertise. So thanks for the work that you guys do. In providing that, we've talked about associations linking to consumers, but you are an expert in linking to consumers at the retail level too. And so we appreciate your passion and just appreciate everybody who's tuned in for this fun conversation. We hope that your taste buds can enjoy as well, and you can connect with some of these great cheeses down the road. And we'll be joining you next time as we roll into a new year with a new conversation series on legacy. Alex has already teed this conversation up well. We'll be talking about family business planning and what it takes to make a farm successful, working with multiple generations and bringing enterprises in. We'll be talking about the legacies that are existing and what's needed to strengthen those and build on those throughout agriculture. And so we can't wait to put a cork in 2021 or 2020 and look towards a brighter 2021. And I think everybody will celebrate the day that we turn the calendar, knowing that we've survived a challenging year. Everything's uphill from this point in time, right? So until the new year, we wish you all the best and hope you enjoy your cheese. And until next time, this is Stand for Ag with Missouri Farmers Care.